I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
Colby and Chip.
Are you sick?
I feel so horrible. All I want to do is lay in bed and cry. I was just standing in the shower. I was like, you need to just start washing your hair. And I was just standing there. I couldn't even... But all night, like, I kept waking up. You shouldn't ask me this on camera because I'm going to start crying on camera. I kept waking up with contractions during the night. So, my hips were hurting and everything was... I just feel like just a big ball of complaints. Anyway, let's do this review.
Good Lord. Speaking of babies and all that jazz, I've got like literally almost like a wall of boxes here because we're going to do our baby shower.
Yeah, on Saturday. 3
it looks like
p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
3 p.m. EST, ladies and gents. So, if you took part in anything, a diaper or anything like that, please show up because we'd love to thank you. If you didn't, please show up anyway because you have supported us in a trillion different ways. Watching it, telling a friend about us, laughing at us, leaving a comment, taking the just and right side in the Monopoly debate in which you... clearly told us what the right thing to do was. All of these things are appreciated. So support...
If you want to see that debate, check out My Sori Life.
Support is not just monetary support.
Didn't cheat.
Support is being our friends through this entire journey and this entire year and growing with us and helping us grow. So please, please, please come. It's Saturday at 3. I don't know what channel we're going to do it from. We're probably going to do it from this channel.
Yeah, I think we should do it from this channel.
So we'll do it from this channel. Anyway, we've got a $75 Patreon partner tier that the big homie Jay has suggested. Scourge of Iron by Cannibal Corpse from the album Torture.
This should be interesting.
All right, let's go.
And go.
The scourge of iron, whose eternal path less than with the skin. Scourge of iron, rending flesh. On earth they live on force. Now the villains marching chains. Men of violence doomed to death. They're reborn for a life of sin. They slave for eons. There will be no relief. Mere pawns of evil. Use them then enslaved. Lash them with the skin. Scourge of iron, ready flesh. Lash, rip the skin. Scourge of iron. bleeding, robbed of pride and power. In the grip of the infernal, and the evil will not die. Our will be relentless, and the pain will never end.
Wow. That's,
What?
Well, what are your thoughts?
Well, didn't we hear, wasn't Cannibal Corpse the one we did that was like forced gender reassignment or something like that? Was that Cannibal Corpse?
No, that was, it's another band. It wasn't them, though.
Oh.
We've only done one other Cannibal Corpse song.
I know we did another one. What
It
was
was Hammer Smashed Face.
Oh, that's right. Such a lovely song.
Which, I obviously didn't like that song. People
Yeah.
were like, oh, Vin, he's just writing stuff and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you haven't seen the things I've seen.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
this song, though.
Sounded like we were singing about hell.
Well, yeah, I would definitely. Well, it reminded me of Isaiah 14. It was funny because I was having a conversation because hell came up and people were saying that there's no mention of hell in the Old Testament, and they're basically right, but not necessarily. There's two specific passages in the Old Testament that talk about hell. One of them sounds very, very close to this whole song.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it says, on earth they live by force. Now the villains march in chains. Men of violence doomed in death, their reward for a life of sin. So these were like villains, and they were tyrants, and they were, and then they're basically brought low. There's another one that made me, lash them. On earth they live by force. Now the villains march in chains. Yeah, so the point is that these were powerful people who, whatever, and then when they're in hell, they're stripped of their pride and all this stuff. There it is. Torments beyond the tomb, skinless, bleeding, robbed of pride and power. So that made me think of Isaiah 14, because Isaiah 14 has, verse 9, and it's talking about Babylon, the king of Babylon. Sheol beneath. And Sheol is the word of the world of the dead.
Yeah.
A lot of times Sheol is translated as hell in the KJV. So like in Psalm 139 in the KJV, David says, even if I make my bed in hell, you're there, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's the word is Sheol.
Wait, can you pause for a second? Stripped of pride, I would think that you would be more prideful. Like, that your pride would be like, grinded in on, you know what I mean, in hell. Like, if you were stripped of pride, then you would be humbled, and then you wouldn't be bothered by some things.
No, a person stripped of pride isn't necessarily humble.
What do you mean?
Well, one example would be Cersei from Game of Thrones. When that whole situation happened, she was stripped of her pride, but that didn't make her...
I'm sure her pride was still well in play when she was walking naked through the crowd.
Well, that's...
Which would make her embarrassed while she's doing it.
Right, so to strip a person of their pride doesn't necessarily mean you're making them humble. It means that they're put in a situation where
they can't be...
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Alright, I guess I misunderstood that.
Yeah, I don't believe people in hell ever become humble.
Well, that's what I was saying. I was like, no, I think that they always have their pride, probably get more so. Like,
well, yeah, he's not saying that they become humble, but what he... Well, so let me just read it, see if that changes anything. Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who are leaders of the earth. It rises them from their thrones, all who were kings of the nations. All of them will answer and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down, see there's pomp, that's pride, is brought down to Sheol, the sound of your harps. Maggots are laid as a bed beneath you, and worms are your covers. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that the person is internally humble, but it's saying that, you know, you had all this
situationally,
you had all
down,
this,
you're brought low.
Right. And it's the very next line, how you have fallen, O day star, son of the dawn, blah, blah, blah. So, it was a very interesting, there it is, robbed of pride and power, right? Like, and it's funny because it's in Isaiah 14 they said, you have become as weak as we.
So you are robbed of the things that give you pride.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right. It's talking about the external things that, you know,
Yeah.
it doesn't change who you are internally.
Yeah.
But it was a very interesting concept because it's kind of like, you know, I'm sure Isaiah 14 was not in the guy's head when he was writing this, but it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty vivid picture in Isaiah 14. All the former kings that used to be Genghis Khan, all these guys, and they rise and say, "Oh, there's another one, another big shot," and now you're just as weak as we are. So, you know, maggots are your bed and worms are your covering. Good Lord, you can't. Your Cannibal Corpse gets pretty graphic, but that's a pretty graphic picture.
I know.
Maggots are your bed and worms are your covering.
I know, and they have no skin. They're walking around with no skin.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, of course, you know, it's got that sort of motif where the devil and his demons are kind of running hell and torturing people
Right,
forever.
yeah, that's what I was thinking when it was saying something about them.
Well, it says
scourging them.
Enthralled to the evil lord.
Yeah.
Right? And then later on it says, you know, said demonic sadists flayed the man with steel.
Right there. Yeah.
Of course, in the Bible, the demons are actually scared of being punished.
Yeah. They're in quite a situation themselves.
Yeah. Demons are not running around with Satan ruling hell.
As a matter of fact, it says that hell was created
for the devil and his angels.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Matthew 25, right?
Yeah.
Depart from me, you sinners, into eternal fire, prepare for the devil and his angels. And so, you know, but in a lot of the medieval art, you know, a lot of people were not biblically literate in medieval times, and so the devil was sort of like the god of hell in their mind. And a lot of that comes from Greek mythology, where you got, you know, Hades, and he actually rules hell. Yeah,
okay.
That's more Greek mythology than biblical theology, because biblical theology has Jesus is the ruler of hell, and Satan is the one that is, because not because Jesus likes hanging out in hell, but Jesus is presented as a ruler of hell because he's presented as a ruler of everyone, hell included. So, you know, the Pope had that tripartite crown, you know, where he was the ruler of heaven, earth, and hell. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you've told me that before, but the hell part just really... What?
Yeah. You gotta rule the entire universe if you're the Pope. Shout out to the big homie.
Understand all of that. Okay.
If you were that big of a deal, my guy, why didn't you protect the... No. It's not the subject. It's not the subject.
Of course, we could make it the subject.
Yeah, so I mean that part I didn't agree with, but I get it. Like that's what people think. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you know, like, it's funny to me, like, so I don't believe that hell is a place of like perpetual fire and things like that. I think it's a terrible place, and you know, we've talked about ad nauseum our understandings of hell, but I definitely don't think hell is like this. You know, or where you're just constantly tortured for the rest of your life. You know, I don't think hell is like that, but I do think hell is a terrible place to be, and I think the people in hell are gonna be miserable in ever increasing ways as eternity continues. And I think, you know, but this is a very good breakdown of sort of like the medieval concept of hell, because this is, you see all this stuff in the medieval art. I mean, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure a ton of Christians have criticized this song for being, over the top, gory or whatever, and skinless people and all this stuff. It's pretty gory stuff.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's over the top because hell, is obviously a very terrible place. So, I mean, I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I don't think that it's. I don't think it's over the top.
Well, but this again is one of those things where it's like, how desensitized are we? Rip their skin, lash them. They're gonna walk around skinless. I mean, these are terrible things. I was watching a documentary on Mosul where they were fighting ISIS, and they were talking about how ISIS was brutal. They were obviously terrible, did terrible things. We all know that. But what happened was when the Iraqi military finally got themselves organized and were able to fight with our help, the reprisals, the retaliation against these people it's one of the reasons that I don't believe in a literal fiery hell. So one of the things that they did was they tied up this ISIS guy, and they threw boiling water on him. And what happens is that it literally flays your skin. You boil the skin right off of him.
Oh gosh.
And so they had this on video, doing this to this guy, and of course, ISIS has set people on fire. Right. And they televised it, and they made a big joke about it.
Oh my gosh.
So the guy is reporting, and he's in, and it was a mainstream news outlet, which is crazy because Vice usually does those graphic, documentaries, but this is actually a mainstream news outlet. And the guy was talking, and everybody had lost somebody, obviously, to ISIS. It was a terrible way to live. They were talking about once, Mosul got liberated, they all piled into the barbershop to shave, because part of ISIS's version of Sharia was you couldn't shave because it's a sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He never shaved unless it was Ramadan. Blah, 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 unless he was going to, Mecca, right. So, I mean, they were living under terrible oppression, obviously, but so everybody had lost one, and it was this crazy moment in the documentary where they were going to pick somebody up who was supposedly an ISIS, supporter, which of course, how could you even know
that it is?
That it was an ISIS supporter. It could just be, you owed me $50 and you didn't pay me, so now I'm going to turn you over to the authorities. And so the reporter is English, and English people are not, Europeans are not fans generally of torture. Americans, and I've seen it, I've literally seen Europeans and Americans, and they have very, very different understandings of hurting people, hurting bad people. So the camera guy's like, so you're gonna bring him in for questioning and and they're like, yeah, sure. And then you go to this clip, and there's this guy watching this guy getting the water thrown on him, and he's watching it on his phone as they're going to pick up some suspected. Oh boy! And he it was weird. He was in some sort of trance, and you could see the what they were saying. We burned his skin right. He had no skin left when we were done with him. Blah 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 blah. And So, but of course, this is a guy. Now the guy that they did it to was a confirmed. I mean, they found him on the field. So I mean, he was confirmed ISIS, but. He took part in a bunch of evil shit, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how evil the person is, it doesn't matter what they did. When you see the guy in that situation, and he's screaming and he's running around the best that he can, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he did. You immediately go, stop. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Stop. So I just don't believe that God's going to do that to people for eternity. I do believe, though, that if God were to cordon off, my perspective of hell is what I call, divine quarantine, and I'm sure I didn't make up that term. But the phrase divine quarantine is my best understanding of hell, which is God just cordons off a section of the universe and says, all right, you guys don't want to play ball. You think it's stupid to follow me. You think my rules are dumb. You think loving me and loving neighbor is dumb. Okay, here's a section of the universe, and you can build your own culture, and let's see how it looks in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that there's demons and stuff doing that, but I think you see glimpses of hell in places like...
I bet people think, oh, that actually sounds like not so bad of an idea. But
right.
If you had to be stuck there for whatever amount of time...
Only people who've lived in a comfortable Western environment would say that.
Yeah.
There are other places in the world where if you told them, hey, we're just going to let,
Yeah. Yeah. When sometimes
roving
when you have
packs of animals determine law.
Sometimes when you watch those documentaries about, like I guess it's like gangs and drug lords and different stuff like that, and just seeing like how those things are, and you think, well, it's always surprising to me when they'll like go after a woman or like a child or something like any of those situations where stuff gets real bad, and then like nobody's safe. It's not like, growing up, my father used to say, keep your nose clean, keep out of trouble keep away from you. But there are literally areas and stuff where you go where it doesn't matter. You can be, There
are areas on the planet where the opposite is true. Like
I bet.
I've been this close to people who, it's like, why were you doing this? Why are you fighting with these people? What the hell is wrong with you? These are terrible people. He's like, well... when I was 9, they put an AK-47 in my hand, and they said, the next person that comes around the corner, you kill them. And if you don't, we'll kill you. So he's like, say what you want.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, we're still going to handle you, but I get it. That's terrible. I'm sorry you're in that situation.
Yeah.
That doesn't change how folks are going to engage you, but I get it.
Even in jail, like, well, I mean, I've never been in jail, you know what I mean? But, like, just, like, the things that you hear, it seems like if you try to keep out of trouble, it still comes at you. So at some point you have to...
Yeah. Yeah, we see glimpses of hell. God doesn't need to set anybody on fire. But we've seen glimpses of hell. Go to, check out Liberia. Like, there are moments when you look at, to me, hell is a society of people... living out the full ramifications of what it actually means to be a sinner, and the full ramifications of ultimate selfishness, ultimate self-centeredness, and ultimate love of violence, which is really interesting here because men of violence doomed to death, and I think especially as Americans, like, we don't really put a very high primer on the evil of violence.
Yep.
But and of course Americans don't realize it, but we're violent as hell, and I mean that literally. We're a violent set of people, man. Barack Hussein Obama had 26,000 drone bombings, the majority of which were civilians, because we have this concept that if we're going to kill 9 cities to get 1 HVT, even though we have trained people, we have selection processes are extremely difficult to pass, and we've got people that have been more than willing to go into that situation and take out that HVT, but instead of doing that, we just drone bomb, and kill 9 people so we get this one guy, but so the concept of men of violence doomed in death, I think, is important, because there's a few times when the scripture talks about God hating people.
Yep.
Which people don't realize.
Yep.
Was it Psalm 11? The Lord loves the righteous, but the wicked and those who love violence, his soul hates. So, I think the reason that he hates people that are in love with violence is because, he loves us. And so when you've got people that are in love with committing violent acts against people that God loves, then obviously there's going to be some retribution. And I don't think... I mean, you look at American evangelicalism, it's crazy. Falwell Jr. said he's talking about Muslims or whatever. And he says, I've got my 9mm here, and remember that whole thing? And he's like, let's see them come over here, we're going to teach them a lesson.
Yeah.
And this is like the head of the biggest Christian institution in America right now.
Yeah.
Sitting in front of thousands of kids.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was college, right?
Yeah. And talking about, and he pulled his 9mm out. And he's never... Never seen a day of combat in his life, but he's gonna, and then we're gonna teach them a lesson. And it's just this reciprocal violence idea, which is completely antithetical to the Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what was crazy to me. I was like, who are you? You're standing up in front of all these kids, claiming a certain belief system, and then you pull out your gun like that, like.
Oh yeah.
Like nothing, none of the words that Jesus said meant anything to you.
I mean,
it's wild.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying is that nobody questions that whether or not that guy is a Christian, but let him come out and say something positive about LGBT people.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere in the Bible where God ever said He hates LGBT people, but it does say if you love violence, God hates you. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's a lot of, like, American evangelicals that are, like, walking around all, like, confident and stuff. I'm like, I'm not sure, bro. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll stick with my atheists and my gay friends, and you have your 9mm and wave it around and threaten Muslim students. You idiots. Mm-hmm. What if one of your dumb, stupid, impressionable 18, 19-year-old students would have took you at your word and went out there and shot one of his friends?
Yeah. Then what?
Of course, when it comes to violence, you had the New Zealand shooter. He went out and shot up, 49, 50 Muslim people in the act of prayer. Mm-hmm. And then you had a whole bunch of people going, celebrate, or not celebrating it, but basically like, oh well, too bad. Mm-hmm. And so, in Sri Lanka, during Easter, 200 Christians got blown to smithereens. And ISIS said it was specifically retaliation for New Zealand. And it's like, all those monsters. Yeah, of course they're monsters that did that. And so is a person who shot up those people in the act of prayer. Mm-hmm. And nobody sees that the cycle of violence continues, and it's dooming us all to death, and it's bringing hell on earth. There was one article, I couldn't even look at it. It was this guy, and he literally lost his entire family in that bombing. Wife, 2 daughters, dead. And I'm sure there's some Muslim, psychopath in some area of the world going, well, too bad. Just like they're supposed Christian Western psychopaths that were completely fine with what happened in New Zealand.
He was there, or he wasn't there when it happened?
I didn't read the article. I just read the headline, and I said, nope, not reading that.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Because I'm really trying to protect my mind here. But it's like. It's like, so when those 49 people get killed in the act of worship, you get a bunch of psychopathic Western people that don't give a fuck. Mm-hmm. And then guess what? Now it happened to us. Now all of a sudden you care and you're angry. But then there's some psychopathic Muslim dude that's sitting there laughing about it and doesn't care either because it happened to his people. So it's like, and it's ridiculous. It's like it's not even the amount of civilians who have been murdered by Westerners. In the Muslim world and vice versa. It's not even, So the guy that was doing the documentary, he said at the beginning, I had a lot of hope that Mosul was going to, return to form. And because Mosul's a pretty important city in Iraq. Mm-hmm. Very, very important city. It's kind of like Corinth to some degree. And at the end of it, he said, the guy basically, I have no hope that this place is going to change because there's so much hatred. He said there's so much violence that because what ISIS did was so over the top.
Yes.
If you apply, the lex talionis, eye for an eye, if you apply that consistently, then that means you're going to have to match that type of brutality.
Yep.
But if you do that, the son of that person doesn't care what his dad did. All he knows is that
What you did to
boiled
him.
his father alive. So he's gonna sit on that and wait on that, and then that's how you have hell. That's hell. There's hell. So I agree with a lot of this. You know, this is a pretty graphic description of hell, but and I pretty much I think maybe, you know, this will happen, but it won't be because God's doing it. You know, I think it'll be because human beings have absolutely no conception of what it actually means to live in a world without God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And,
it says that like God restrains people from certain evils.
Yeah.
So if God's hand of restraint was taken away, what would the world be?
Yeah. Well, that's hell.
Right.
And you get glimpses of it. You get glimpses of it in a concentration camp. You get glimpses of it in those big giant barrels that the abortion clinics have to dispose of the children that they dismembered. You see it in Liberia where people are eating other human beings. You see it in Syria. You see it in Afghanistan where there's a wedding and then an American drone comes and blasts everybody to smithereens, and the husband's looking for the arm and the other piece of the head of the wife that he was about to marry. Hell. So it's a pretty sober song, and I gotta say, sonically, I feel terrible saying this, you know, because we were talking about some heavy stuff, but sonically speaking, like the methodology of going we're gonna go super fast and then like slowing it down, I love stuff like that. There is a Slipknot song one time that
sounded
did that.
really good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that part. There's a Slipknot song that really did that for me, and it was like a 2 or 3 minute song. I forgot the name of it, but I loved how he went fast and then he slowed it down and chunked it up. That was pretty badass.
Yep.
What do you give the song?
It's weird. I'm between a 9.3 and a 9.8 actually.
Yep.
So I guess 9.6.
Yeah. 9.8. Do a 9.8. I don't know why I'm not necessarily giving it a 10. It's completely arbitrary. It's a good song. Good lyrically. I like the way they arranged it. And the solo was also really, really good. Because the solo sounded chaotic to some degree, but it wasn't chaotic at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. But it definitely matched what they were going for. So it's a 9.8 for me. Good freaking song. Terrible subject, but good song. You done? You have anything else to say?
No. I guess I'm gonna bump it to a 9.8 as well.
Okay. There you are. Shout out to the big homie Jay. And happy birthday to Kevin.
Does he want his last name then?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Kevin, happy birthday to you, big homie.
Happy birthday.
Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.
Demonic sadists flay the death with steel. The wind strips flesh, torments beyond the material.